me, Matthew Dawkins, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Dixie Cochran.
Hello.
And Eddy Webb.
Hello.
Hello, my mysterious duo, I suppose. Oh, no, I suppose we were a mysterious trio, but I was referring to the two of you as mine, which is a bit unfair. You don't belong to me. You are free now. You are free from your lives as gladiators. No longer will you have to fight in a fictional coliseum against Joaquin Phoenix.
There was like a whole war about owning people, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't like any of this.
So today's a very special episode because we're getting to interview John Burke. Oh, well, clearly the rapturous applause from the gallery there greeted this very special episode.
Well, it's better than like, who?
Yeah, that's
Who?
true.
What?
Yeah, that was just tacit approval there, I think. But Eddy won't be joining us for this interview. Why not?
No. I'm going to get a haircut.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, we'll look forward to seeing what your hair looks like after the podcast. Of course, the listeners, what with this being an audio medium, won't know, but maybe they can guess. You'll have to describe it.
Yeah, it's like, listeners, look at the art for the podcast. Now imagine it looks different.
Yes, your role players, imagine. But before we get into that, maybe it's a nice idea to talk about some of the things we're working on right now, knowing that we're recording this about 3 weeks ahead of when it's going to be broadcast. Damn it, I've already shot myself in the foot every episode. What do you think you're going to be working on in 3 weeks' time, Eddy?
Well, at that point, we're probably going to be either close to or launching the Pirates of Pugmire Kickstarter.
Ooh.
That has been very much on the top of my mind for quite a while now, and we've talked about it. And in fact, probably after this episode, I have been recording what I've been calling a design diary. Every step of the design process for Pirates of Pugmire, I did a little 5 to 10 minute talk about where I was at and how things worked. And so I've edited those together. So in the next week or so, we'll actually have a whole episode of me just rambling on about Pirates of Pugmire, what the process is like.
Eddie just wanted an episode to himself.
It's true. I got tired of being cut off, so...
Yeah, I just did it. But no, that's right. Thing is, we've already listened to this design diary, and I have to say, I was on the fence. I didn't know how well it would come across, but I really enjoyed it. It was nice to see a little bit of insight into the mind of Mr. Webb, and has reinvigorated my desire to put my Cult of the Blood Gods one together. But spoilers for people who are going to listen to this episode when it comes up. Eddy uses the dun 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 sound effect from the Onyx Pathcast, and I'm thinking I might use some kind of slide whistle to really emphasise the horror of Vampire the Masquerade between each day.
We'll both choose the exact worst sound effect for our respective game lines on this. Because I probably should use a slide whistle on Pirates, honestly.
So next time we will be talking about the necromantic families and their incestuous ways.
I don't have a design diary to work on, so I don't know what I would do.
Well, now's the time to start.
I'm not designing anything. What would you like me to do? Like an editing diary? Dear diary, today I changed a whole bunch of commas to semicolons and also put spaces around em dashes.
You know,
it was super fun.
You know, you say it in a mocking tone, but I bet there would be some mileage out of an episode where we really break down the importance of good grammar, punctuation, and similar.
Possibly. I don't know.
Writers would listen to it. I guarantee writers would listen to it.
And also, I mean, talking about the things that you have to go through to change, it's kind of both an educational thing for our writers, but also to show people there's a lot more that goes on than just correcting spelling,
Yeah, I feel like a design diary, though, if I tried to record myself in real time, would just be a lot of me going, what? Oh, really? What does this mean?
Interspersed
oh my God, I can't believe
whistle.
Bleep!
You did not do this to me again.
All right, well, on the subject of bad grammar and incestuous necromancers, now's the time for us to start our interview with John Burke. So off to the hairdresser with you, Eddy. We will speak to you again later. And we're back for our third attempt at this interview.
Way to just tell people right off the bat. Just...
Well, let's make no bones about it, Dixie. This one has been a trial, and not because of any problems with our guest, Mr. John Burke. John, how are you? It's like you've lived 3 lifetimes.
That's it. I don't fully understand the journey of a Promethean at this point.
Yeah, I was going to go for a Mummy the Curse metaphor, but
Yes.
Promethean also works. Well done, bringing us back on point. So we've been through many ordeals trying to get to this point so far, and we can only hope that this is the one that you will finally hear when it gets recorded and uploaded.
For what it's worth, all the ordeals have been on Matthew's end. John and I have been fine.
Yeah, and I have to hold my hands up and say that the gods hate me, because if it was the same issue every single time, I would fix whatever that issue was, or at least throw that faulty piece of equipment out. But first time, the Wi-Fi failed. Then my microphone wasn't being recognised by my laptop, and then during the middle of our last interview, the laptop just crashed, just completely froze. And I think I was speaking for a full minute on some soliloquy until I noticed that no one was there anymore.
We were very sad, actually, because you were about to say something really nice about John.
I was, and that's not going to happen in this take. So.
He was afraid of that. He told me that was his fear.
I saw this coming.
So this one's all about how much I hate John Burke.
I told you, John. I told you. He was going to say that.
I'm into that. Let's do it. Let's dance.
You know, we sometimes talk about the fabled lost episodes of the Onyx Pathcast, and there'll be those secret ones, like The Day the Clown Cried, that movie that was never released.
Oh yeah.
The one about the French guest house, this podcast, we're not going to be able to go back to that French guest house now. That's a different timeline. We will never return to that guest house overlooking the Seine, that no one's going to understand what I'm talking about now, but we'll remember. The 3 of us will remember.
Our lovely Arcadian vacation.
We'll always have Paris.
Yeah. Just nobody else will. So John, I think we'll tackle this from a different angle this time.
Wait, can I tell the story this time? Because I can now.
Oh, please.
Because I've heard it twice.
I do kind of want to hear this.
Go ahead, Dixie. I'm going to sit here and do as little as possible so that my laptop doesn't rebel against me.
So the way John and Matthew met was through something called the Vampire the Masquerade YouTube experiment, in which a whole bunch of people essentially LARPed via YouTube and Google Hangouts. It was super cool. There were like 200 players. It apparently is still ongoing if some people wanted to keep doing it, but it's, dropped off a little bit. It got to be a little too much for Matthew, who had a day job at the time and was playing the Prince, so he stepped back. John Burke took over, ended up essentially becoming storyteller for a lot of stuff, and that's how they met.
You've condensed a 15-minute story into 50 seconds, so I hope you can come up with material to fill those last 15 minutes.
I think Dixie should just send me a questionnaire and then you should just interview her. It's very succinct. I quite like it.
No, I can't do a Scottish accent.
Yeah, that's true.
For real, though, I think it's super cool that you met Matthew through playing Vampire and then ended up writing on something that wasn't Vampire for your first few things. So do tell us the story of how you got involved with Onyx Path, how you got involved with writing in general, the RPG industry, etc.
Well, I thought after meeting him through a vampire-related experience, I should at least attempt to suck him dry, and therefore, when he offered me money in exchange for my services, I misunderstood him. No, I
episode is not safe for work.
It's getting dark.
Within the first 5 minutes, this is what has driven us to.
I leapt at the opportunity. The first job I was offered was They Came From Beneath the Sea, which is probably the favourite project I've worked on of mine. I say the favourite is the one you all like the most as well. It was definitely my favourite, just because since there was no sort of previous lore or anything really to be, I suppose, kind of reverent of, I could be as irreverent as I wanted.
Right.
And we had a great team of people who all approached the project with great humour, and everyone had a great laugh with it. I think that's probably the defining characteristic of that whole project was that we were all just having great fun, still are, anytime we discuss it. So that was how I started, and then into the more serious stuff. So Contagion Chronicle came after that. Shunned by the Moon came after that, I think, in chronological order.
It did.
I've since worked on Mummy the Curse. I've worked on upcoming stuff for V5, so I've done Chicago by Night. I'm working on some of the stretch goals for that, as well as stretch goals for They Came From, and my dream job of writing up the Giovanni stuff for V5, which means you're all going to be subjected to my headcanon from now on.
Yeah, Matthew knew better than to let me write anything on the Lasombra. He just gave that to somebody else. He was like, I know it's your favorite clan, Dixie, but I don't like you that much.
Hide it behind the shed. Yes.
I did wonder why the Lasombra chapter of V5 wasn't completely edited into oblivion.
Because it was lovely. It was well done. I liked it a lot.
Well, thank you very much.
That is the one thing about, like, for me, is that if I want to write on something, it means I can't edit it. So I'm always very torn. I'm like, do I want to write like a small section, or do I want to edit the entire book? I don't know.
I should probably have that standard for books I develop, shouldn't I? I should say, well, if I'm developing, I shouldn't write anything.
I think most developers write a little bit on their books. I know Eddy writes a little bit on everything Pugmire, pretty much, aside from maybe some of the like adventure collections and whatnot. And Eric and Vance often write little bits on Exalted, etc. It's super common. I know that Neil wrote one of the fictions for Scion. Yeah, very, very common. I don't think that's a problem. I think it's when you try to edit yourself, which is something that nobody can do.
No. No. Everyone thinks their work is either perfect. Well, they can't see the flaws, I think, is the better way to put it.
So it sounds like you've worked pretty much exclusively for Matthew Dawkins at this point, John. Are there any other lines that you're interested in working on?
Nobody else likes me, Dixie. I don't understand.
You never asked me to work on any of my stuff. Well, actually, you technically have. It's just that the Chronicles projects you've worked on were developed by Matthew. So you've worked on my lines. It's just they were Matthew's projects.
He's an octopus. Yes, he's got tentacles everywhere. I said 10, didn't I? Right. So I think I have worked for one other developer, which was Monica Valentinelli, I believe. I might be murdering your name. Sorry.
No. I think you actually pronounced it correctly. Yeah.
Oh, what a man! And that was on Dark Eras 2. So we did a bunch of stuff about the sort of post-imperial China, so it was called the Last Imperials, which was the most intense research I had to do for a project. I would say I was clinically dead by the time I finished writing on that. Cause I'd actually have to say, and I did want to include her in the credits for the book. I hope I can still do that. But there was a lady who was introduced to me by Matthew when I was working on that project, who gave me a great deal of help about just making the sort of Chinese history stuff and the Chinese cultural stuff far more authentic than I could, even just with a quick reading.
Oh, very cool.
So, yeah, I mean, I had a lot of help, and it was very instructive. I ended up reading a lot of books, learning a lot. I know much more about China and Chinese history than I ever could have. It's one of the benefits of being a writer, actually. You somehow pick up all these mad factoids about things because you're like, oh, I'd better figure out something about this, or won't be able to write a damn thing. Yeah. So,
well, after we're done recording, you can shoot me that person's name, because I am editing the book right now and have the credits in my hands.
I will absolutely do that.
So if she's already in there, I can add her in. So yeah, very, very cool. But so what kind of research do you usually do for a project versus what went into like a Dark Eras project?
It depends. I've been lucky in some cases. So like some of the stuff that I've worked on, I had personal experience or knowledge of it, or it was about settings where I've lived, or have at least visited extensively. Probably, for example, like the China stuff was really, I got a book given to me actually by my wife's dad, which was about the sort of administration of the kind of Chinese government, if you want, at that time. And it's a great book by a guy called Ray Huang, called A Year of No Consequence. People should look that up, because although it sounds dull as dishwater, it's actually quite a fascinating read, or I thought so. But yeah, normally I would, first port is sort of Dr. Google if you want. But I try to use that to not just kind of just go, right, what's in Wikipedia about this, but like pretty much go, well, where else can I look? Because a lot of people, if you're looking at even the YouTube videos and stuff, a lot of the guys that post YouTube videos, a lot of people that say, all right, here's a thing about a topic, then at the end give you a sort of bibliography or a reference sort of guide, saying here's a bunch of books that I read, and you can go and track some of them down. Like I think with the internet it's much easier now because I can download books, whereas before I'd just hoping that the local library had it, because you wouldn't want to bin hundreds and hundreds of pounds on these books. But yeah, it's pretty much a sort of process we go through. I mean, for the Great War one, I ended up listening to this several hours long podcast by Dan Carlin.
That was my fault, wasn't it? Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. It
was quite interesting. Like his delivery can be quite like, it's the way sort of like it's very theatrical the way he tells you, and I suppose that's part of the way that it's packaged. It's more easy to digest that way, but it's almost kind of Warhammer 40k-esque, where it's like, and this next thing that happened was the worst thing that ever happened, ever, anywhere. And you're like, but you've said that 4 times. Like, you can't have it both ways, Dan. So, it kind of loses its impact after the first twice. But no, that was, quite illuminating as well. As I say, mostly I just go from internet to books via a process of osmosis, pretty much. I try to find people who know what they're talking about, see what kind of stuff they recommend or they have read, and then go from there.
Honestly, I really wish that podcasts had been more of a thing when I was in college. Like, there were a few that I listened to, but I wasn't as into them as I am now. As a lot of our listeners know, I'm a huge podcast fan. Like, I listen to usually at least 2 hours worth a day, and then sometimes probably more than that. And so, like, if I could have absorbed some of the information I needed for college via podcasts, that would have been amazing. Unfortunately, it was all, paper research for the most part.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. Mentioning Dan Carlin and with the Great War era for Dark Eras 2, which John's work on, by the way, was fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. And one of the reasons I've asked for you to come on here, John, was to talk a little about Dark Eras among other projects. But the Hardcore History show, if anyone here doesn't listen to it, is one of the most accessible ways into history that you will ever find. And John's right here. The narrator, Dan Carlin, is rather overdramatic. He very much does lean towards entertainment, but he always cites his sources. He doesn't spout conjecture. He just tells stories in an incredibly interesting way, and it's all historical fact. And so the number of times I've been over to France and Belgium, specifically because of the Great War, my dad does battlefield tours occasionally. So I was over there quite a lot during my teenage years and felt I'd learned a lot. And then I listened to this 5 or 6 part podcast series and found that all these new avenues that I'd never even heard about from these tours and all the books I'd read. So definitely one I'd recommend. But John, on the subject of Dark Eras 2, because you ended up writing for, I guess, 2 different game lines, because you were writing for Promethean, weren't you, for the Great War?
That's right.
And Mummy for the Last Imperials?
You are correct. 2 for 2.
I feel bad because the 2 chapters that we're talking about aren't chapters I've gotten around to editing yet. I'm like halfway through the book as we're talking. So I'm like, I'll read that soon. I'm sure it'll be fantastic.
But did you, well, I know you said you really enjoyed your work on They Came From Beneath the Sea. Is there any work you've taken? I know you probably take a lot of pride in all of your work, but is there any work of which you are particularly proud of, the amount of work you put into it, or of the amount of, I don't know, accuracy, depth, what you will?
That's a tough question to answer. I probably think if I was to name a couple of things I was really happy with, like particularly so, we're both working with Chris Allen, funnily enough. So the Santiago setting for Contagion Chronicle, I thought was excellent. When I read that back, I was just like, yeah, this, if I was a storyteller reading this, like trying to be objective as I can be, looking at it, I was like, there's plenty of stuff here that I would love to include in a game. And that's very, very important to me. And then the Great War stuff on Dark Eras, just... It couldn't not be brilliant. It couldn't. The setting's too perfect. It's too evocative of all the themes of Chronicles of Darkness. It's just so horrible and human. What more, if you were to, like, literally, if none of that stuff had happened and we were all just sat down in a room and told, design something that could have happened that would create this sort of setting that we want to have, this grim, dark sort of horrific stuff, and yet through it there are the golden threads of the humanity that basically what you cling on to through the story, so you're not just sitting there crying the whole time. And I mean, again, Dan Carlin captures it really well because he does tell quite a lot of human stories, but I don't think anything can truly capture it. And certainly, I wouldn't claim to say that we did, but reading some of the stuff back, you're just like, God, that's just perfect for the game. I mean, I just encourage anyone who's going to play a Dark Eras game, do consider that one, because I'm immensely proud of it.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to be, I guess, fully willing to invest in the absolute wasteful horror of the Great War to want to participate in a session or a chronicle set then. But I'm incredibly proud of the work that you authors did on the Great War chapter, and that was you, it was Chris, it was Emily Griggs, and you all did fantastic work. And for anyone, again, unaware who's listening, that chapter handles Promethean the Created, Werewolf the Forsaken, and Geist the Sin Eaters. And I thought what was particularly interesting about that selection, because we were fairly tightly driven by which lines we'd put into each era, although sometimes there seemed to be a bit of a wild card element. And with the Great War, I loved that obviously Sin Eaters have a very strong attachment to death by their nature, so they were well placed, much like Wraith was in Wraith the Great War. But I was so happy that we got Promethean in there, because it is such a game of, well, the struggle of humanity, and sometimes the pointlessness of that struggle, the utter abject tragedy of it. And then you've got werewolves, and werewolves are kind of the wild card element, except they've got that excellent pack mentality, which for me really worked because of the mentality of the Great War, of all these poor bastards stuck in a trench together or wherever they happen to be, facing an uncertain future, potentially certain death should they poke their head above the parapet. And it's the very thinnest, most severe end of the wedge of Werewolf the Forsaken, when your werewolves are about to go over the top and face whatever horrible great spirit is waiting for them. In this case, it is the machine guns of very mortal enemies. And yeah, I'm stuttering over it a bit because I think that John, Chris, Emily did such a fantastic job with that chapter. And so my hat goes off to you, John. You did sterling work there.
Thank you very much. But put your hat back on. Your hair is a mess.
Yay, levity.
I had to lighten the mood somehow.
Right.
Well, okay, so go back to They Came From Beneath the Sea then.
Oh, absolutely.
So maybe because some of the people listening to this will have already read the They Came From Beneath the Sea manuscript, and they might be interested to know which parts or some of the parts you contributed to it. So what did you do with They Came From, your very first assignment?
see all the bits you guys liked. That's what I wrote. No, the first thing I wrote for it, because I seem to recall there was a discussion that we want an antagonist that we can just put together quickly, and I can work quite fast if I do say so myself. When I go, right, okay, fine, I've got an idea. Both I can churn out things quite quickly and generally quite a good standard fast. So the first thing I did, I think, was Brainbox.
It was.
And that was, because they were looking for things for starter scenarios, and that was one of the ones that got thrown out by me, going, oh, look, here's a big robot. And yeah, I mean, that was just me having a great big laugh with, like, what could I have in a B movie? You know? Well, giant robots, that's what I loved when I was a kid, so I'm going to stick to that theme. And I don't know, adding a sort of touch of kind of twisted humour into it, because they're all trying to sell you things, overcome their original programming.
Yeah, they were like 1950s almost telemarketing, QVC style shopping network stuff.
Yeah, repurposed as killing machines.
Yeah. But it was one of the first things that came to mind when I hired John for They Came From was his sense of humour. And it's something we've discussed about They Came From Beneath the Sea quite a lot, that you can't prescribe humour, you can't tell the audience what is funny, but you definitely needed authors on it, or I definitely needed authors on it who could draw from a, I guess, wide range of humour, and so we certainly have a bit of dystopic humour in there with individuals or threats like Brainbox, through to some of the more, I guess, sublime and horrific monsters that you put in. Which of the other threats did you write?
Okay, so I did Brainbox first. I did Centipus, which I've really liked, just because it's basically a chronicle, essentially, in a character. I did the Oblique, which was I was quite proud of that. I thought that was a really good idea. I did the Prefecture of the Pod, which is a sort of more grand conspiracy type thing. What else did I do? I had a whole number of things I've done. I've written a whole bunch of things quite recently for stretch goals for it, so I'm trying to mentally file between what's new and what's in the previous manuscript.
No. Feel free to talk about some of the new content too.
Oh dear!
Even though I haven't redlined it yet, so this is all subject to be cut to smithereens.
I could say all these things, and then it's like none of them are in the book. Then everyone will turn around and just look at each other with knowing glances and go, "That got canned." John Burke made to look a complete prat. There you go.
We'll put a voiceover over this bit that says, "This audio footage has been lost. Please enjoy this intermission music."
Seen missing, just like the first two attempts of this interview. Yeah, so I came up with one that was about, I just thought of the phrase about rats leaving a sinking ship. I thought, well, where do they all go?
Oh no.
Well, they all go together into a giant ball of rats. A big mutated toxic rat ball. So yeah, you'll be reading about that shortly.
Thanks. Great. Awesome.
And
love my job.
Yeah, it's just great fun.
And the wonderful thing is you get that in Werewolf the Forsaken as well. And Pugmire.
Yes. I'm sorry I've not worked in Pugmire. I really enjoyed, we did a live play of that once with Eddy.
We did, didn't we?
I got on, but I actually won a competition to get on that. It was brilliant. It's like, who can ask the most inventive and interesting question? And it was me, and Eddy Webb has regretted that for the rest of his life. It's like, why? Was I sucked in by his broguish charms?
Yeah, I didn't tell Eddy. So what happened there was I was interviewing Eddy in advance of Pugmire's Kickstarter, if I remember. And part of the interview was we had live questions coming in, as you do when you're doing live interviews on YouTube. And I had already said to Eddy, what we could do is if the people are up for this, the viewers are up for it, we will go through all the questions, and at the end, Eddy can say which two or three questions entertained him the most, or made him think the most. And he picked two, and yeah, one of them was John's, and so yeah, he was there jumping up and down in his seat. I remember telling Eddy, because I think by that point, again, I'm getting my timelines mixed up here, but were you writing for us at that point?
It was not long after that I think I'd already submitted, so he may have caught my name in dispatches, I guess, but like I don't think I'd signed anything, so it wasn't official, but that was pretty close to the time.
Yeah, it was all a bunch of the people who ended up getting chosen were all YouTube people with YouTube channels who did videos about role-playing games, so it looked like a complete fix. But I can assure the audience it wasn't. So I've got a question slightly different. Actually, no, you know what? I will go this line of thinking, and it's kind of about the writer's process, because as you've pointed out, you submitted a few times to Onyx Path before you got hired the first time, and indeed you submitted for Vampire before you got hired for They Came From Beneath the Sea. And I, as your frequent developer, have seen your writing style change, improve project by project. What advice can you give to both aspiring writers and new writers to either get your work noticed or just how to improve as a writer? What steps have you taken?
I suppose the first thing is try to be as neutral as you can be to the feedback. So it's difficult, like for example, where They Came From Beneath the Sea, I was very personally invested in a lot of the stuff I wrote because I was really proud of it and really pleased with it. Obviously, it was my first sort of paid job for that kind of thing. I'm thinking, oh God, you really want to impress. You've written all this stuff, you've checked it 15,000 times. And then you get your red lines back, and it's maybe not the content has changed dramatically or anything, but you're kind of like, oh, half the time you're beating yourself up about how did I miss that? How didn't I see this? And why didn't I know this? Or, but I think I've always tried to be as sort of not blasé, not kind of like, okay, whatever you think, but like be as neutral as possible, to be open to it, understand what it is, that it's actually an attempt by someone to say to you, right, so this is what you've done is okay, but like here's where I think this can be made better, and get to understand why that is. Actually talk to them about it. Like, don't be afraid to turn around to your developer and say to them, by the way, like, what's that all about, and why is that the reason? Why is it the way it is? Because you'll come away knowing, Mm-hmm. And I mean, if your goal is to do something in this industry, and if you want to be the best person you can be in it, to even become a developer yourself one day, to make games, which I think if you're not wanting to do that, then like, I'm not going to say what are you doing, but to me that should be your goal, certainly as mine. But then you want to learn as much as you can about the process that takes place from start to finish, not just the little bit you're dealing with. So you want to know, well, not only why is what I've done wrong, so to speak, but also like, well, why is what you're saying right, if that makes any sense. The other thing would be stick to your deadlines. So like, do not mess about with, when things are supposed to be handed in. Know yourself. So like, if you're the kind of person that can churn out 10,000 words in a day of good quality, then well done, like, great. You can timetable yourself accordingly, but be honest with yourself and know yourself. And if you're not going to meet the deadline, then make sure you're telling people early, because it really is all about the process. And the sooner the developer knows that something's amiss, the sooner they can fix it. And they're there to help you. They're not there to judge you. In terms of someone wanting to get in, I hate to be crass, but make friends. Start communities, get involved. I'm not active on the forums or anything, but that's probably a good place to go to meet, these guys, other people, get talking to them, get to be a person who they say, oh, that guy's quite interesting. That girl knows a lot about this game, that sort of thing will get you noticed. And then when you're submitting, they're not just going to see it as submission A, they're going to see, oh, that's that person that I've spoken to in the forums, and they are quite knowledgeable, and your submission will therefore stand out. It will help you. So do as much as you can in that front, but also work to improve yourself constantly. Take as much feedback as you can from as many different people as you can. read the product, understand what it is, what are they looking for, what are the themes of the game. Like, don't write for They Came From Beneath the Sea and just go, here's a purely grim, dark piece of thing, because that's not going to be, it might be great writing, but it's not what they want. Similarly, don't go into the Great War Dark Eras project and submit zany robots going about wisecracking across the trenches, because that's just not what people are looking for. I may have waxed somewhat lyrically here. I could go on for ages about my thoughts about kind of what people should and shouldn't do. But I suppose I could boil it down to believe in yourself, because you can do it. I did, and listen to me.
Yeah, I mostly just said that I don't get to read about zany robots in the trenches.
Another game, another time.
I'm up for it if you are.
They came from beyond no man's land. There we go. Yeah. We will do our zany Great War game one day, Dixie.
Just what I've always wanted.
Yeah. But no, to be honest about, I agree with all of that advice. It's the thing that so often doesn't get mentioned, and networking isn't so much a dirty word as it used to be, but that idea of getting known is useful, whether you're doing it at conventions, so in meet space as it's called, or whether you're doing it online. It doesn't mean you need to be in developers' faces all the time. In fact, quite the contrary. What John is saying, set up communities, run games, get to know people, become the helpful voice in the Vampire the Masquerade Facebook group that has advice for people but not judgment. Because, when John submitted his work for Vampire, I could tie it to his work and his storyteller's voice in the Vampire the Masquerade YouTube experiment. So I already knew there was a certain amount of cachet there. And not everyone has to do it. Sometimes we will hire people to, as a bit of a gamble. But the more you can make your brand known, and it makes me feel dirty to say that, but the more you can do it, the more likely it is that we will know who you are, remember your name. So other than that, though, on the, I guess, subject of craft, what would you say, looking back to your first drafts and all the red lines you've gained? Because as you say, you were self-critical. What would you say are your biggest areas where you have improved or needed to improve as a writer?
I actually think these are all quite common. It's funny, so I started training jiu-jitsu years ago, and you didn't realise how much you were improving until new people started, right? It's basically what I'm saying. And it's the same with writing. I found, I kind of felt, God, look at it, because you have access as a writer. I don't know if anyone maybe can see behind the curtain too much, but you have access to everyone's red lines. You can look at everyone's drafts. And sometimes I would look at some of the things other people were writing and be like, oh dear, that's really good. And they've hardly touched this. There's 2 or 3 things on it, little typos and stuff like that. And you'd be like, oh, you want to be that. That's what you want to do. But you just look at that as something you want to achieve. And I think the common things that I did wrong, certainly, and I've now found that I do it less, and new writers who I'm beginning to become acquainted with are all saying in their Facebook pages or talking to me in private or whatever and saying how can I overcome this problem with things like, the overuse of that, the passive voice, all these little things that you don't think about, making your writing almost, and I think this was a big problem I had, was that my writing was very conversational. It was all written in a way that someone would say it to you, which gave it a certain character, I suppose, but didn't really work in so far as it being a reference text,
Yeah, there's times and places for conversational and role-playing games, and it's mostly in things like, the storytelling advice chapter, because you do want to be a little more conversational. But that is something that I delete out of a lot of books, where somebody starts talking in first person, and I'm like, nope. Don't do that.
Yeah, it needs to be almost agreed upon, right? So that, and as I say, there is that, overusing that a lot. A lot of it was to do with the styles, and I suppose that's an important tip for new writers. Don't skimp out on that. Don't wait for that to be corrected. The developers will quickly get tired of you just ignoring that side of things in terms of how it should look, how should it be spaced, how should each paragraph be set up, what does a sidebar look like, what does a stat block look like. It's important to know all that. And I kind of, at first just rattled things into a Word document and was getting things back saying, come on, like styles, Yeah. And like, I think I've fully mastered it yet still. I actually don't think I've got my head around how exactly it works. I'm going to tutorial myself on it, believe it or not. But like, I think those are pretty common things that I think everyone struggles with. I think what you look for, I suppose, is that quality that sits underneath that. I guess you guys as developers probably look at that like, well, okay, he's done this, and this, but there is a quality there. So I know a few guys that worked on the Chicago stuff were like really upset with the use of passive voice and stuff like that. And as I said, like I overcame that just by kind of little reminders to myself. Like, so the Yoda quote was one: "Do or do not." Right, that's how you avoid passive voice. There is no maybe, there is no seemed to, there is no did it happen, did it not? You don't be wishy-washy. You either they did something or they did not do something. That's how I kind of escaped that trap. And it's interesting now being able to pass that stuff on to people and try to help them, because there's quite a lot of good writers coming through. So hopefully they can take heed of all my bump and overcome.
Well, yeah, you've always been a very strong team player. I feel like we're in your annual review right now. But so, Mr. Burke, how do you feel your year's been? One of the main reasons, well, not the only reason, but one of the big reasons I hire you for books is because whenever I've got a project which is based on a Slack channel, and most of the time I do my projects using Slack as a sort of central station for writers to communicate. John, you are very good at communicating with everyone, sharing ideas, criticizing when necessary, and praising when deserved. And I find that having a few writers who are real good team players like that, it can be invaluable to a project. It keeps everyone motivated, and obviously the developers there too. But if it's only the developer doing that, it can often feel like that I'm in the role of teacher, and I'm or dictator at worst, and saying, come on, deadline, I've not heard anything from any of you for 3 weeks. But if there's a bit of chatter on the Slack channel or the Google group or whatever we're using, and sometimes it'll be from you, sometimes it'll be from Eddy, and there's a few other writers who are really good at this, it just keeps the project alive and buzzing. But I wanted to touch as well, you raised styles, and it's been a while since we've mentioned them on this show. And for anyone who doesn't know, because I know we have talked about it occasionally, you may or may not be aware that on Microsoft Word, it's a bit dry, but it's worthwhile hearing. On Microsoft Word, when you open up a document, you can often see on the top, on the ribbon across the top, you can select things like normal, heading 1, heading 2, italics, things like that. And they adjust the font and size of the text. Now, Onyx Path have something called a styles document, or styles dot, and you apply that to Microsoft Word, and it pulls all of Onyx Path's styles in, which go by such catchy names as N style, B style, I style, 1, 2, 3 style, and things like that. And that's things like headers.
Quote and chapter and attribute. Some of them have actual words.
yeah, that's true. That's true. But the whole purpose of them, there's a few different purposes, but the main purpose is because when books are going into layout and being converted into PDF, the person in charge of layout is able to determine what size the headers need to be, whether this text needs to be in bold, italics, a sidebar, or whatever, if you put them in the right styles when they're in Microsoft Word. They also help the editor, because the editor can actually read your document as it's supposed to be read, and they help the developer for that exact same reason. So, not to put too fine a point on it, but there is massive merit to getting styles right first time. Now, that's not to put pressure on, not everyone can, but my point with that is, if you don't know how to apply styles, even with the guide you've been given, ask before you submit your first draft, because aesthetics are a huge part of the developer's job. As in to say, if I'm redlining someone's work and when I open it, it looks like a mess, I'm going to be already, my hackles will be raised when I've opened up this document and it isn't in the correct styles. But if it looks correct, even if the quality isn't what I want it to be, even if it has passive voice and excess uses of the word that or whatever, if it's in the right styles, at least I know that the writer read the outline and the style guide. It's a start. So, prospective writers, follow the style guide. Back onto content. John. So, one of the latest books you've been working on is Cults of the Blood
I'm so happy.
Yes. So, I've known that you're a big fan of the Giovanni for a long time, and this, I think, will probably be the first podcast where we really talk about Cults of the Blood Gods in any depth. And I weighed up, should we do it, shouldn't we do it? It's obviously a book that's got to go through approvals, but I thought, hell, why not? What's the worst that can happen?
I am the worst that can happen, let's be honest here.
Oh no, it's been burked.
It has been burked beyond all comprehension.
Without too many spoilers, John, what can you tell the listeners about what is within Cults of the Blood Gods, and specifically what you worked on?
Most of my work was around Clan Giovanni, but also in there are a number of cults, obviously. The Blood Gods referred to therein being between sort of maybe even mythical figures, but generally Methuselah of some kind, sometimes posing as actual gods, other times just actually going, I'm an incredibly powerful vampire and should be worshipped, and other ones with just bizarre and twisted plans that somehow they've coaxed other people or dominated them or whatever into believing in. I continued my Cult of Shalim stuff from Chicago by Night, which was where I first introduced that little thread. People who've played the Vampire the Masquerade YouTube experiment may recognise that as something I've been working on for actually quite a long time, and testing it out on you all like little guinea pigs. And we also introduced a kind of Toreador cult that I worked on.
Michael. Sorry, you go ahead.
Well, that's okay. It's based around the triumvirate of Constantinople. But again, that to me that was candy floss, the Clan Giovanni stuff, and the new Hecata, I suppose, alliance of clans more than a clan itself, is where my meat and potatoes was, and is what I've been itching to write about since I was a teenager, I guess. So it was great to actually be able to do that. I don't want to say too much about it, but in terms of people who are concerned, I know a lot of people read V5 and were like, the Giovanni, they're mentioned twice in the book, and both times it basically says they've had their arses handed to them and have been sent packing. What is dead may never die, and who fears death least? Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. And what happens if you kill a lot of necromancers? Do they really care? Is it an Obi-Wan moment? Do they become more powerful than you could possibly imagine? Well, they certainly think so. So they
very good at the PR machine, Clan Giovanni, aren't they?
Yes,
making people think they're a lot weaker than they are.
I think what we've tried to put across is not so much they aren't mobsters. There's no, obviously there is involvement there. They're into that. They're into the organised crime and all that. But as a clan, they're actually more like a Medici bank. They're more of an old company, and that company has existed for a long time. Before they were vampires, they were doing this stuff, because all the way back, and those elements of tradition and family and that have been passed down from generation to generation before they were embraced, and now the people that were steeped in those traditions are still alive today, some of them. But what is death but another part of the cycle of life? And I don't want to say too much more than that. But they are in a stage of renewal, at least that's how they, as Matthew has put it, will be branding it.
Yeah, I think the Hecata definitely come across as a sect in a way. I mean, they are the clan of death in a very broad sense, but they are a sect that is kind of forced to stand alone because they wouldn't fit in with the Camarilla, not at their heart, and they definitely wouldn't fit in with the Sabbat, and they definitely think the Anarchs are beneath them. So where does that leave them? And yeah, the events of V5 have led to strange bedfellows coming together, and that's the same with the Lasombra joining the Camarilla, or indeed the Ministry joining the Anarch movement. So when you look at who the Giovanni are now getting into bed with, some are former allies, some are, I guess you could say, former parents, and but that's very Giovanni in mindset to bed down with such people. Certainly I want to put at ease anyone who thinks that any of the friction between Cappadocians, Harbingers, Samdi, Giovanni has just magically disappeared. It hasn't. That this is a marriage of convenience, but one of necessity as well. And I think the way John puts it, that the Giovanni and the Hecata are a very old company. They're a very old family-run business that has no interest in closing up shop. I think that is bang on the money. The thing I found when I spoke to people about the Giovanni over the last couple of years was there was always a lot of toing and froing. Some people were big fans of the gangster side. Some people were big fans of the necromancy side. Some people hated one side or the other. They either felt like we're all playing Mafia Goombas and that's ridiculous, or they were thinking no one in Clan Giovanni actually knows about the end of the world plot that they have, the Endless Night plot, so how am I supposed to play that? The one thing everyone enjoyed with the Giovanni was the family aspect. They are the only clan that has that tightly knit, dare I say it, incestuous binding that the Giovanni has. And so the Hecata is a family. Utterly dysfunctional, but to misquote a commonly misquoted quote, blood runs thicker than water. So John, in our last 10 minutes or so, are there any other projects you've worked on that you'd like to talk about, big up, or the like?
I like the phrase "big up," so I'd like to point that out first of all. Sounds like something a Rastafarian would say really loudly, in a far more outrageous accent than the one I'm using. I suppose I'd like to hear more, or I think maybe people would like to hear more about Shunned by the Moon, which I really enjoyed working on. It was actually my first foray into Werewolf the Forsaken. I had quite a reasonable amount of experience with Apocalypse, but it was really my first step towards that. And it's such a, I don't know, it's quite a grasping setting. It's quite a very, I don't want to say a simple premise for a game, but it's very straightforward in terms of how it's set up, and that's what I like about it. You know, it's just kind of like, here you are, and here are things, and these things are coming. You know, and you have to keep those things over there and these things over here, and you're the thin furry line, if you want, between utter chaos and madness and basically the human race. Oh, and by the way, they hate you. You know, so you can't really reveal yourself to them either. So I quite like it. This race of very powerful, you know, very, very sort of honourable in a strange way creatures with immensely evil, maybe not even evil, but like just twisted things opposing them, protecting a bunch of people who really don't know they're there, and if they did, would try to kill them. You know.
Right.
So I loved working in that book just on the basis that the freedom it gives you when you're dealing with the antagonists to these things. I wrote something for it that I really quite just enjoyed the idea of it. I remember sitting in the writers' meeting talking about this thing. I've come up with this idea of a thing I'm calling the grandmother. And the people in the meeting sitting there going, oh my God, what on earth? So I'm looking forward to people reading that. And yeah, I mean, basically it's a book about antagonists for werewolves, but like most of the things I worked on, it's thick with plot, and the character descriptions to me are almost like a setting in itself to some extent. And I think that pretty much everything I saw written on that, not just the stuff that I wrote, was really dripping with the hooks that people want. So if you're into your Werewolf the Forsaken, get your hands on that when it appears.
You also wrote some new hosts for that book.
I sure did. I quite liked them on the basis that they were sort of Giovanni spirits, I guess, to an extent. That's it. I'm bringing them into every game now. No, they were. They're basically a toad, or a kind of frog-like, toad-like host. And what I liked about the Digogs, as they're called, was the idea that they aren't necessarily trying to kill you. They're not just an evil, horrible monster, because all of like the stuff like the Bishilu and that, they're basically coming to eat you alive, right? And that's quite a stark thing. Your relationship with them is they're trying to kill you, you're trying to kill them. Understood, right? And they're horrible, and it's very evocative. But the Digogs are worse than that, because they'll come to you and say, I see you have a problem with some Bishilu here. How about we sell you a load of guns to kill them? At the same time, someone else from the Digogs is over in the Bishilu, encampment, saying to them, by the way, what if we sell you a load of guns to kill them with? And they're just basically hoping that you'll all wipe each other out. The idea being that they're just big lazy things that sit there and kind of let their enemies kill each other and try to make sure that happens. And while they're doing it, want to live in as luxurious and lavish a lifestyle as they can. And their whole shtick is to essentially like keep this war going on forever, a sort of stasis in a horrible state of war, in order to prolong the decadence that they live within. And at the same time, they need to stop both sides from trying to kill them. So they're almost an antagonist's antagonist. I really like that element of them. They're kind of a strangely grey feature in a very black and white world.
Well, with that said, Dixie, do you have any other questions for our guest?
What's up with the hummingbird thing?
That was actually from doing the exact talk, the writers' meeting I just mentioned. That's how that started, the hummingbird thing.
Okay, so yeah, so there's like a hummingbird meme with John Burke, and I need to know the background behind it.
During a writers' meeting for Shun by the Moon, we were spitballing and different hosts, and it seemed to me that it was all sorts of animals, things that generally would feed on people or something like that. And I was trying to think of, well, lots of animals can eat something alive. I'd like to try to think of something that feeds in a funny way, that feeds in a really weird way, that would be strange and awkward to deal with, and would be kind of shocking and horrific in its own way. And I was like searching through things while the meeting was going on, and I found this term nectarivores, right? Mm-hmm. Of things that suck the nectar out of flowers. And the top one on the list was hummingbirds. And I happened to just say in the meeting, oh, hummingbirds. Right? That would be interesting. And everyone just either fell about laughing. I think basically Eddy and Matthew, who were just like, no, we were not. There will be no hummingbirds. And at that point, our relationship being what it is, was like, oh, Matthew doesn't seem to like this idea. That means that's all I should now talk about for the next 3 months. So yeah, it turned into a bit of a thing. So when people were commenting on things in the Facebook group and that, I would come in and go, and hummingbirds. And it seemed to catch on for a while. So it became somewhat of a meme. until Matthew managed to stamp it out.
He hasn't, though, because I've just brought it up on this podcast. So
Yes, you have.
The thing is, it bothers me far less than it bothers Eddy. I think right now the beating of hummingbird wings is enough to send Eddy running for cover. So
I think it's hilarious. I don't know.
You've not been in as many meetings with John as I have.
Also, a swarm of hummingbirds trying to suck the nectar out of your body would be fucking terrifying. So
there you go. Storyteller's Vault
that's
product.
What I
John.
thought. Yeah, that's it. I have one customer. This is brilliant.
I will work with you on this, John. I will edit it for you.
I'm fully behind this project. I'm willing to go the distance.
That was my only question. That's all I want to know about.
I have one last question, and I guess it's. I was going to say, what's your dream project? But knowing you, I know that probably would have been to work on the Giovanni for Vampire. So
Giovanni hummingbirds.
Now you're talking.
Well, there we go. I don't need to ask anything more. So now that you've crossed that one off your bucket list of writing achievements, and it doesn't have to be a game of hours, but if you could write for any game line at this point or in the next few months, what would particularly appeal to you?
Are you talking to John Burke the mercenary or John Burke the artist? You know,
let's ask both. Let's ask both John Burkes, Mr. Harvey Dent.
Yeah, he wants to work for Rachel. No, he would like the mercenary would work for Wizards because that's where the money is. So the mercenary goes where the money is.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I do enjoy D&D 5th edition. I have to say, it's. I know it's sort of a lot of people talk about dumbing down and stuff, but it's very streamlined, and I quite like that. It's accessible, and I think allowing more people to play your game is a good business decision in my view.
Yeah, I think it's a great game personally.
Yeah. John Burke, the artist, would like to write an awful lot more Chronicles and World of Darkness lore and stuff set in the United Kingdom. One of the things that attracted me to the Giovanni is because one of the families is a Scottish family, and I'm from there, and really all that did was make me read about it. And the lore in Scotland alone is deep, and I know with like things going on around London and stuff like that, and V5 and everything, like there's just so much that you could do, and it's kind of mentioned and then never really expounded upon. And I just think it's an absolute gold mine. And I would love to do something with it, just because obviously not only do I live here and like it, but I think right now, especially the way things the way they are over here, that there's probably a lot that you could say in terms of change and things that are happening, and what people are saying about that, and why Theresa May is not a vampire, despite how she might look, and yeah, I mean. Yeah, just basically more sort of like UK based stuff and expanding and all that fluff, because so many things happened. The White Howlers, the Fianna, the whole links between the Dunsarn and they're actually kinfolk of different werewolves and stuff, and all the sort of hermetical societies and things that really did exist here. And just going all the way down through the history, there's just so much there. And I think it's untapped. And the more I hear of cities in America that I've never heard of getting source books, it makes me weep. And it's like, God damn you! Then Paisley by Night would be, you wouldn't really have to change it to be grimdark. So
did you just admit that you'd never heard of Chicago?
I have heard of Chicago. I have not heard of other places which I can't name because I don't know them. There you go.
We might, you never know. We might get a Glasgow by Night. I would argue Glasgow by Night is probably more deserved than Edinburgh by Night.
But Edinburgh is a far cooler city, and it looks way cooler.
Well, Edinburgh's got the history.
Also,
be careful.
The only Vampire Dark Ages game I ever played was set in and around Edinburgh.
Well, there's a Contagion Chronicle that I wrote set in Edinburgh, so enjoy that.
But I didn't edit that, so who knows if I'll get around to reading it.
And on that happy note,
I have to read so many books for work.
Yeah, but there is work and then there is pleasure. And I wrote this, and it has Burke, as I would say to my new good friend Meredith. Therefore, it is worth a read.
All right, well, John, thank you very much for your time for this third take at our interview. We made it, everyone. I'm hoping we made it, because I'm going to click stop recording now. We're going to go back to Dixie and Eddy and myself. And we're back from the interview for the second time. Eddy, you've just walked in with something on your head. What's that?
It's what's left of my hair.
It looks really nice, actually. I don't know why Matthew's acting so weird.
It does.
Thanks for saying that one, Dixie. I appreciate it.
I've told you both in Discord and on Skype that your hair looks really nice.
It's true.
I gave you a like on Facebook. I mean, what better compliment is there?
Well, what else could I possibly want, right?
Yeah.
For those of you who are not visually able to see this,
which is all of you, the podcast.
Everyone listening to this right now. There was a time about a number of episodes back where I was missing for a couple episodes. That's because I was getting my surgery for my bone-anchored hearing aid. And I found out that my long hair doesn't really work with the bone-anchored hearing aid. It keeps brushing against it, and I keep hearing sound every time I moved. So I got my hair, went to a hairstylist, got my hair cut very, very short. So that lovely art you've been seeing for the past year on the podcast, it's completely obsolete. You have to delete it all from your computers. You never look at it again.
Yep. Stop saving that art to your computers anyway. That's a bit strange.
It's good art. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
I think I just want to stare longingly into your eyes, Matthew.
So we forgot to do something. When I say we, I mean I forgot to do something during the interview, and that was take down John Burke's social media details should anyone wish to follow him. And I recall Dixie did record that information, and now I'm giving her a lot of lead-in time so that if she saved it in a document, she can find it before I get to the end of my sentence. Dixie, do you have John Burke's Twitter and Instagram?
I don't have his Instagram right now because I've forgotten it. I do have his Twitter, which is at JohnPBurke82. All one word, no spaces, no underscores or anything. He does have an Instagram. I'd have to type and look it up, and that would be your fault for not telling me I should have written this down.
It only just occurred to me. So if you look up John Burke Instagram, who knows what you might find, but you will probably find a John Burke.
I feel like now that I've cut my hair, like all the magic has gone out of the podcast. Everything's falling to shambles. No, I'm joking. It's been a shambles.
Oh, John Burke's Instagram is "What's Burke doing?"
That's appropriate.
Also, all one word.
That's very appropriate.
And yeah, Eddy, do you feel like Samson at this point?
Yes.
Because, well, in all seriousness, you had that hair for a long time.
Yeah, actually, my mom just posted on Facebook that the last time my hair was as short was when I dressed up as an astronaut for Halloween when I was a kid.
Oh.
Which is probably in the early 80s. So it's been a while.
It's been like my entire lifetime.
Yes. Yeah. Last time my hair was as short, Dixie, you did not exist. Neither of you existed.
No. You could dress up like an astronaut for her again.
It's true, I could.
Wait, does that mean that if you cut your hair, we're going to cease to exist now?
Oh no!
Ooh.
What have I done? I made a terrible mistake.
Those are the rules of the universe. If Eddy has short hair, neither Dixie nor Matthew can exist.
Well, in that case, we'd better wrap up this podcast quickly. Thank you for the fantastic segue there, Dixie. If people want to follow you on Twitter, if there's any point, Dixie, what with the account soon to become inactive, disapparating, where would they find you on social media?
You can find me most everywhere as Dixie Cyanide, various Discord servers, Instagram, Twitter, the like. And I do have a website, dixiecochran.com, if you mostly want to see a long list of things I've worked on and or, hire me.
And Eddy?
You can find my personal website at eddyfate, eddyfate.com. Also, my professional website is pugsteady.com. And you could find me on Twitter at eddyfate. You can find me most anywhere at pugsteady. And you can find me on Facebook at eddywebbwriter.
Lovely. And you can find me on MatthewDawkins.com. And that's all I'm giving you this time as I fade away.
I don't feel so good.
Many worlds, one Pathcast.